B1 family, welcome black. Welcome back to Black Logic. I'm just thinking about Donald Trump and how I think other states who most dive into the blue will try to ban Donald Trump name from being on the voting ballot. And it's kind of making me think, as a very apolitical person myself, what is Donald Trump going to do once he's in office? Or what are they expecting Donald Trump to do while he's in office? We're going to cover the illegal ban or the illegal federal ban that Texas has put on the illegal immigration crisis. Some people say asylum seeker crisis, but we truly know what it's all about. And these are things that we need to cover and break these down to see how it affects Black America. So, what is the big issue here with Donald Trump? I know a lot of people are trying to figure out what other states are going to do when it comes to Donald Trump. And the question is, has the 14th Amendment ever been used to disqualify a presidential candidate before? Those are some of the things that people are asking. I think there's other questions that people may also ask is, why did the court rule Trump ineligible under the 14th Amendment's insurrection clause? Because the court, by a 4-3 margin, interpreted Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which bars anyone from holding federal office if they were to engage in an insurrection or rebellion against the United States of America. Now, depending on how you guys feel, did Donald Trump somehow violate the 14th Amendment? Or is this a rebellious act against the U.S. majority, arguing that Trump's action leading up to and during the January 6th Capitol attack met that definition? That is in question here. Did he actually violate the 14th Amendment? So this is something that Colorado has to prove, or I guess within their own jurisdiction of their state, has already proved. Now, citing his public statements and citing the mob and his alleged attempts to overrun and overturn the election results. But here's the thing. Isn't this unprecedented? Hasn't the 14th Amendment ever been used to disqualify a presidential candidate before? Because this is completely uncharted territory. This is the first time this specific clause has been applied to a presidential candidate. Donald Trump is the first for a lot of things, by the way. But this is going to raise questions about its scope and the precedent it sets. Now, what about the legal challenges? Trump's camp has already filed an appeal on Colorado's ban of ballots, so to speak. Where does this go from here? These are the questions I've rising to the family here. Some things that you may want to throw around and make some comments here in the chat or either after the video. But the case is now headed to the U.S. Supreme Court, and there is a final decision expected before the Colorado primary in June. Now, the Supreme Court may uphold the Colorado ruling, setting a different precedent or even declare the entire clause unconstitutional. Here's my thing. If Colorado is able to get away with this, will other blue states follow? Well, will any other states follow, even if they're red, because they might want to put, Raviki Ramaswamy in office, Ron DeSantis in office, Nikki Haley in office? Are some other states, blue and red, are going to use the same tactics, stating that Donald Trump violated the 14th Amendment, Section 3 and 4, of inciting an insurrection and attacking the Capitol? These are just some questions I have for you guys, because let's talk about the broader implications, right? Some see this as a necessary safeguard against the future attempts to undermine democracy, while others worry about setting a dangerous precedent for disqualifying candidates based on political convictions. But both sides raise very valid concerns. Ensuring free and fair elections is paramount, but Disenfranchisement also raises serious democratic concerns. Ultimately, the Supreme Court will have no rule to put down in order to enforce this. As a matter of fact, the Supreme Court will have to navigate this delicate balance when making this decision, because this is a complex and is an evolving situation. It really is really going to evolve into other states, whether they're going to try this tactic or not. But nonetheless, this is a crucial moment in American history. And believe me, I just encourage everyone to follow this case closer than you were before and engage in some informed discourse about its implication, because at the end of the day, who will this affect the most? Will it affect, white Americans, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans, Black Americans? Well, it's going to affect all Americans. Because when I'm looking at the candidates family, none of them are for us. Okay, but I'll digress with that. I'll digress with my own rhetoric, okay? Because there's simply a lot to unpack from the Colorado Supreme Court decision and its potential consequences, right? Because let's look at this. When I look at the overreach of the government and how this may affect certain people, it's not going to affect Black people at all. It's not. So with that being said, I'm going to move on to the major topic at hand. But I know you guys heard about them removing from the ballot, which is this reading the Constitution. He really didn't violate. Okay, and I'm not getting on the Trump bandwagon. Okay, I'm not wearing my MAGA hat. I don't even. I'm apolitical when it comes to these political stances. So I really want you guys to know what I'm saying. I'm very, very neutral. I'm looking for the empowerment and the education of informed Black people, okay? So when you take a stance on these and you're not out for your own best interest, that is when you kind of tend to string along party lines or sway one way versus the other way, and you're not thinking at the best interest of your people because you're thinking about the best interest of your party. So I tend not to get on the Democratic or Republican bandwagon, so to speak. But anyway, good old Donald Trump indicted Barr from the ballot from Trump. Bad news cements support. Let's see how this charges up a lot of the Republicans. I'll tell you this, what it has done. Nikki Haley, Chris Christie, as well as Ron DeSantis has came out in support of Donald Trump, stating that what Colorado has done is unconstitutional. Okay, so I think secretly all of them want Donald Trump to be president again, but what they're really trying to do, because everyone's trying to protect Donald Trump, everyone is not trying to say anything negative towards Donald Trump. So what's going to occur, they're really, let's just be real, they're interviewing for the vice president job. That's what they're doing. But who's most likely to receive the vice president position if Donald Trump becomes president? I'm gonna tell you right now, Nikki Haley. That is what white America will want. Where you had a Black, Asian female president, the first, VP or president to be a female. The next one will be a white woman. I'm telling you right now, family. If Donald Trump becomes president, look out for people like Nikki Haley or someone of her kind to be, the next VP, so to speak. Okay. I would be astonished if Nikki Haley becomes president. I would be very, very shocked. But let's move on to the topic at hand. Texas new legislation, S.B.4, which makes it illegal for you to be in Texas illegally, okay? It criminalizes people who are illegally crossing into Texas. Now, I kind of combed through the SB4 bill. I'm going to try to summarize it the best way I can. But before then, I want to lay the foundation on something. America has, numerous of organizations that is geared towards protecting us on a very federal level. So this is what I'm talking about. So this is United States Constitution annotated Article Section 4. United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a Republican form of government and shall protect each of them against invasion and on application of the legislature of the executive when the legislature cannot be convened against domestic violence. Okay, so basically that's saying that the federal government has a duty to protect United States citizens in all the uniform states of America, the United States of America. That's what I'm stating. Let's move on. Department of Homeland Defense, okay, DHS, Department of Homeland Defense. It states here that DHS mission is to ensure a homeland that is safe, secure, and resilient against terrorism and other potential threats. Now, the onslaught of overpopulation, the onslaught of cities in America making themselves sanctuary and overflowing the Black community is what I'm geared at. So keep that in the back of your mind, how people in Chicago and Arizona and all these other so-called sanctuary states and cities, the Black residents are crying out more so than any other people. But now we're also having white people in New York talking about overpopulation, talking about that, the criminal rate in their states and their cities and their jurisdictions have risen ever since there's been an onslaught of all these caravans of all these people from different countries throughout Central America, throughout the Caribbean, as well as Haiti and even China and Asia as well. All right, they're seeing people from Asia in the likes of China, as well as India coming illegally. Those people in the Caribbean, whether it be Haitians, Venezuela, all those countries in Central and South America, all of them are coming up in droves and caravans inside of America. So that could be a potential threat to America, because if we're just kind of doing this catch and release policy and we're not doing our due diligence, what we have to do is an investigation and a background check dealing with those people within their own governments to check to see, are these people well known? Do they have a criminal record? Anything, right? But because of the amount of many people and the lack of resources we have on the border, Governor Abbott has taken initiative to make illegal border crossing a state crime, not a federal crime, which it already is. So when we look at this, family, things of this nature, is America protecting its border? Is America upholding some of the things that we have organizations like DHS in place to do? One of the very first things that DHA's rulemaking states, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, U.S. Customs and Border Protections, U.S. Coast Guard. So we have all these organizations, we have all these so-called missions of these organizations not fulfilling their duties. And this is granted, this is allowed by the current president of the United States of America. Let me move on. Maybe some of you guys are not familiar with the National Security Council. It states here it's a primary advisory body that advises the president on national security and foreign policies. The NSC also coordinates these policies among government agencies. And one of the things it states down here, advising the president on national security and foreign policies. That has to do with immigration, okay? Coordinating policy among government agencies, integrating foreign and military policymaking into interagency processes, incorporating various departments protecting into decision-making, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Let me move on. The United States, also known as ICE, United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, is a federal law enforcement agency that protects the country from illegal immigration and cross-border crime. ICE mission is to protect the integrity of the U.S. borders, national security, and public safety. Now, I want anyone to answer this. Has ICE been doing that? And if ICE has not been doing that, who has been doing that? What state, what federal organization has been enforcing illegal immigration? The stopping of illegal immigration. What federal entity has had the power given to them, even though it states right here in their mission statement, these things have not been about by the current administration. So let's look into it. It states here, threats to national security, such as terrorism concerns, threats to public safety, which are defined by criminal history, threats to border security, such as anyone who entered the U.S. without authorization after November 1st of 2020. This is their mission when it comes to ICE. So currently there's a lot of civil rights groups that's kind of protesting. And again, a lot of these, organizations are Hispanic led, by the way. There's really no black people out there putting on a cape for illegal immigrants that come into the country and be made citizens to once again soak up the meager resources in black communities and black neighborhoods. Now, Texas is 40% Hispanic. That's a very large population. So they're trying to stop these very, very large caravans and an onslaught of illegals coming inside the country. And don't forget, family, we're not just talking about Hispanics. We're talking about people from the Caribbean. That includes Haitians, Jamaicans, and everyone else, as well as countries in Asia like China, as well as India, right? Both of those countries are well overpopulated. They have over 1 billion people in their country. Matter of fact, when we're talking about the world population, India and China takes up 2/8 of the world's population, right? And then I think thirdly, after that comes Africa. But anyway, let's look into this.
To block the new migrant arrest law in Texas, El Paso County has sued the state. The ACLU and the Texas Civil Rights Project claim that Senate Bill 4 violates the U.S. Constitution because Congress has given the federal government sole authority over immigration enforcement. Governor Greg Abbott signed the bill yesterday to take effect March 5th. The lawsuit, filed in Austin this morning, says S.B.4 would prevent immigrants from requesting asylum in the U.S., a right they have regardless of how they enter the country.
Now, I want you guys kind of think here. Give me a second. I want you guys to think about this. I want you to think about this in a very basic form. You are an immigrant. You are a migrant. You're coming from a country that's maybe war-torn or cartel-torn, and your government is not doing anything to have some sort of structure or organized police or state police. However other countries go about policing their state, right? Whether it be locking up illegal people who are involving themselves in illegal activities, going after the cartels, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So these people are not asylum seekers. A lot of these people that come to America, and this is my conjecture, are not asylum seekers. Now, I've done this before, but I'm gonna do it just for people who are not familiar when they say asylum seekers, okay? So we're gonna look up the word asylum seekers, okay, or asylum. When someone who is clarifying that they're coming over to the United States of America for asylum reasons, okay? So it states here that a foreign country may grant asylum to individuals who are being persecuted in their home country. This can be due to their race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a social group. So what you're telling me is that all of these people, thousands of people now, December 19th, which was yesterday, they had over 12 to 13,000 people at the border, the most they've ever had at one time. That was unprecedented, was a record-breaking, shattering amount of people at the border at one time, over 12,000 people. So you're telling me not just those 12,000, but the 10,000 and the 11,000 and the 8,000 and the 6,000 and the 4,000 and all the millions of migrants that have come to America prior to yesterday were all asylum seekers. So we're talking about a third of a country. We're talking about Venezuelans, Costa Ricans, Colombians. We're talking Mexicans. We're talking about everybody. You're telling me that everybody that came to the border is an asylum seeker based upon their race, their religion, their nationality, and political opinion. Thousands of people. That's what you're telling me. So when it comes to race, let's just throw race out the window, right? There may be colorism within that, but let's throw it out the window. Religion. Most Hispanics are Catholic. Most Hispanics are Christians. Then we talk about nationality. They're from their, country of origin. Political opinion. I can see that being a piece, but none of these people, okay, I've watched probably over 100 interviews to kind of get some information to state that majority of the people have not state the reason why I've come to America is because of my political opinion. The reason why I've come to America, like you guys have in the States, you have Republicans and Democrats, and I'm a Republican, but most of the country is Democrat, so I'm being persecuted. Have anybody heard anyone from any of these countries that speak English said anything of those lines? No, you hear the same story over and over again. These are poor, impoverished countries, and they're coming to America for the bag. They're coming to America for opportunities. They're coming to America for, jobs and better way of living and this, that, and the other. I don't have a problem with that. See, the problem I have with this family is two-sided. One, they're coming inside the country illegally, which is a crime, which is a federal crime. That's number one. Number two, even though they're coming over illegally, which the federal government is allowing by the way of the Biden administration, so border states like Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, they are rounding up the people and they're shipping them to sanctuary cities. Like, oh, you states have deemed you guys selves as sanctuary cities, meaning that you're just fine with a bunch of people who are not illegally in the country inside your states, inside your cities. I want you guys to think about that. And so the Mayor Brandon of Chicago, has called out and demised Governor Abbott on his stance of shipping, over 65,000 migrants to sanctuary cities and states. Now, again, I'm apolitical. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat, but I do agree with Governor Abbott on this. If you guys have legally, claimed yourselves, labeled yourselves as sanctuary cities, then you are open for migrants to come inside your states and you support them and you provide the resources they need to live their lives in your state. Because we kind of been over, all the legislation that was passed, all the support that migrants are getting over Americans, and especially over Black Americans. And matter of fact, most of the cities, other than Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard, that they dropped off these illegal migrants, have been Black cities. Majority of the population of these cities are Black. Well, there's a great concentration of Black folk in those cities, and they're dropping them off in Black neighborhoods. So what has that done? Now, the most notable state has been Chicago, because those residents are stating that the few community, facilities that they have literally banned the residents from going inside their own community centers because they have overtaken them. The state has overtaken them. The city has overtaken them to house illegal migrants. So is this legal? Okay. And if some of you guys are you in defense of this SB4 bill? I'm on the bandwagon, so to speak. I am in support of it because it does make sense. Because if we have all these national security agencies, the National Security Council, we have ICE, we have Homeland Defense, we have, what's the other one I stated? We have all these so-called immigration federal organizations that pose to stop the very thing which is occurring. The Biden administration has allowed it to occur. And because we are not understanding of the laws and the Constitution of this nation, some of us are like, well, they're coming over here for a better way of life until it affects you. See, no one is stating here on Black Logic that we are against legal immigration. No, not stating that. I'm simply stating that we are against illegal immigration, and we are against the shipping and busing and flying of illegal immigrants to sanctuary cities where a majority of Black people live, because now we see the effect that it has on our economy within those really small neighborhoods, okay? It also states that refugee status, asylum or refugee status may be granted to people who fear persecution due to their race, religion, okay, basically say the same thing. Then you have the asylum seeker one is someone who is seeking international protection from dangers in their home country, but whose claim for refugee status has not been determined legally, okay? It also states here, a second, in the United States, an asylee is someone who has been granted asylum. Asylees are protected from being returned to their home country and are legally allowed to remain in the country without fear of deportation. They are authorized to work in the United States, may apply for a Social Security card, may request permission to travel overseas, and can petition to bring family members to the United States. So basically, this is a pathway to citizenship. We've already seen states like New York fund migrants $2,000 a month, provide them with work permits, provide them with living quarters, provide them with everything they need to succeed in America. Now, if that is on the legal chances, then I'm not against it. But this is what I'm telling you, fam. This is yet another way that this country, that this government has totally ignored the outcry of Black folk. We can go down a whole laundry list of all the legislation, all the support, all the benefits that other groups have been given. And listen, I will talk to Negroes, and I'm calling Negroes for a reason, of all the benefits, all the legislation, all the bills that this country has made for other groups. But when I run down that laundry list, which is current, they would tell me, well, we already have laws on the books. For who? Is it specifically for Black Americans? Because I can show you laws and legislation that are specifically for these people. Then the argument tends to die down just a little. Okay. So let me make you guys evidently aware of the situations that our family is in.
Putting the tens of millions of dollars earmarked for migrants into Chicago's most vulnerable neighborhoods.
But the South Side has been under-resourced, underfunded for years, for decades. We have schools that need to be reopened. We have buildings that are abandoned that need to be business operated.
The group says the city has abandoned its Invest Southwest initiative, a Lightfoot-era program that was dedicated to reversing decades of disinvestment on Chicago's South and West Sides, promising to align more than $2.2 billion through public and private funding.
We are taxpayers, we're property owners. Our money should go towards fixing our communities.
The city has received more than 15,000 migrants since August 2022.
We have no more room. Y'all are embarrassing Chicago as a whole.
According to analysis by the ABC7 data team, there are more than 20 active migrant shelters across the city, 7 located on the South and West Sides.
Whether it's one shelter or whether it's 10 shelters, we're saying the facilities that are there for us, the money needs to be put into those facilities for us.
In a statement from the mayor's office about the group's concerns and the status of Invest Southwest, a spokesperson says in part, quote, "We are committed to continued investment for all residents, but especially communities on the South and West Sides that have long experienced disinvestment. We are the city of Chicago, and our shoulders are big enough to support both new arrivals and those who have long called this city home."
Mayor Johnson, the Black aldermen, the Black alderwomen in this city, you will stand for the Black citizens of Chicago.
Now the city says Mayor
So
Johnson
this is our family crying out against the blatant disrespect and disinvestment of Black communities. And this is what I was referring to. So if you don't think illegal immigration are affecting Black people as a whole, then you must be sadly mistaken. Because if this continues, family, if this continues, it will come to a city near you. So am I against SB4, the new Texas bill that Governor Abbott put in place? Am I against this bill? Absolutely not. Because if America won't protect this border, at least one of the damn states is taking initiative. Now, granted, the U.S. Constitution, Congress may shoot it down, may not let it pass or slide, and a lot of organizations are coming out against it. And like I told you before, I kind of read through this whole thing. It states Senate Bill 4 looks to prohibit sanctuary city policies. I know this is very small on your screen, so this is the way the bill shows up on the Texas website. But what the bill also states is that it prohibits a peace officer from stopping a motor vehicle or conducting a search of a business or resident solely to enforce a federal law relating to immigrants or immigration, including Federal Immigration and National Security Act. So there's a whole lot that's going on with this immigration bill. There's just a whole lot of things that are occurring that we need to be very aware of these things, because again, I do think that this could affect Black people as a whole. Some of you may not agree that it's only affecting the Chicagoans and other border states right now. But again, if this continues, those places going to be over their capacity to hold people, and it will start to spill over into other, majority Black cities and states as well. Now, I believe that Texas, they took a very bold step when it comes to immigration with the enforcement with Senate Bill 4, okay, which is also known as SB4. There's been organizations that have come out against Texas, within Texas. The ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, and the Texas Rights Project have filed a lawsuit claiming that the bill signed by Governor Abbott violates the U.S. Constitution, arguing that immigration enforcement is solely under federal jurisdiction. Now, as I showed you guys before, there's like over 4 organizations that's supposed to protect America from illegal immigration. But nonetheless, let's break down the pros and cons of this, including Abbott, and State Rep David Spiller. They argue that the SB4 is a necessary response to the immigration crisis created by the Biden administration. They believe the law would deter illegal border crossing, enhancing the safety of Texas communities. However, opponents, organizations that are represented by the ACLU and others contend that the law is unconstitutional, denying due process and disproportionately affecting, this is what they said, Black and brown communities. I don't really think it affects Black and brown communities, fam. I don't really think it affects Black and brown communities. I think it affects Black communities more so than brown. Because guess what? These organizations and the people who are coming out to protest are not Black. I think I had a news story up here that will show you the people who have come out in protest of this. Maybe I didn't. I probably didn't populate it, but nonetheless, they had a whole group of people in all these different organizations that came out against the SB4 bill, and all of these organizations were Hispanic led. So when they do the whole Black and brown coalition, family, that has never worked, and it doesn't look like it will work in the future. Believe me, all these organizations have come out and against the SB4 bill that is affecting majority of the Black cities, especially Texas, in this potential legislation. Okay. But I guess the likelihood of SB4 making a significant impact, some things that we probably should consider is a contentious issue. While Abbott asserts that the new law will dissuade potential immigrant, crisis argument may lead to unintended purposes and consequences and legal challenges. The Mexican president, Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador, has even vowed to challenge the law, emphasizing the international dimensions of the dispute. Why is the Mexican president challenging the law that Texas has made? That's very, very simple to answer. Let me tell you why. Because the Mexican president does not want non-Mexicans in Mexico. The Mexican president only wants 2 types of people in Mexico: tourists and Mexicans. All those people he has allowed, okay? The Mexican president has allowed thousands, hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants to enter its border as long as they're going to the good old US of A. That is the only way a lot of these illegal immigrants are entering the United States of America, is through Mexico. Do Mexico have police? Yes. Do Mexico has a military? Yes. So why aren't these law enforcement agencies preventing, stopping, slowing down, decreasing the amount of illegal immigrants that's entering their country? Because they gave them a green pass to continue to the United States of America as long as they don't stay in Mexico. You see? So is the Mexican president part of the problem as well? I would have to say yes. I would definitely have to say yes, that the Mexican president is part of the problem too. Because now the big question is, whether other border states will adopt a similar strategy. States like Arizona, New Mexico, but we can draw parallels with Arizona State Bill 1070, which they made in 2010. They faced legal setbacks with that particular bill because the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that immigration enforcement is a federal responsibility. That is what the U.S. Supreme Court ruled. That immigration reinforcement is a federal responsibility. Now, when we look at Texas Senate Bill 4, I understand that for most people who probably not in Texas, it's probably not even a controversial issue with you. But I want you guys to truly think about how, if this legislation is shot down, where do you think all of these illegal immigrants will go? That's my only question for you. Because I'm going to do another breakdown here to kind of wrap things up for you guys.
Children brave dangerously high river water levels in order to make it into the United States. This woman saying her journey has been exhausting. She's part of a wave of more than 1,000 migrants who chose to risk their lives crossing the Rio Grande in Eagle Pass, Texas this week.
Lo tiene desesperado. Queremos una mejor vida para la familia también.
That desperation leading to tragedy.
See, that's what I was referring to. Anytime they were asking the migrants, why are you risking your life to come to the United States? None of them stated that they're in fear of prosecution of asylum, or that they spoke out against the president and now they're in fear of their life. No one stated that. They're coming to America simply for a better way of life, illegally. Again, family, I'm not against legal immigration. I'm against illegal immigration.
Tragedy. Texas DPS saying a 7-year-old girl died here after being swept away while trying to cross the Rio Grande. A teenage boy also found, but in critical condition. This, as Governor Greg Abbott is expected to sign a bill that would allow all police officers in the state to arrest migrants who enter the country illegally, the type of enforcement currently only done by federal agents.
It hurts us to our core. And y'all don't understand that. Y'all don't live in our skin.
The controversial bill has escalated tensions between state leaders, with some critics saying it will lead to racial profiling. Meanwhile, cities across the U.S. who have been taking in migrants now grappling with the financial toll.
We will be forced to make some tough choices.
In New York City, Mayor Eric Adams announcing budget cuts that could affect schools and cut down on police numbers in response to the rising costs of the migrant crisis, adding that the city could see even deeper cuts without any federal help. Meanwhile, in Chicago, buses full of migrants continue to arrive. Meanwhile, in Chicago, buses see even deeper cuts.
I want to show you guys something right here. This is what I want to show you guys. Now, I definitely don't want to be one-sided with this SB4 bill, because will it, okay, not can it, will it target Black Americans? And the answer is yes. The answer is yes, because we have Jamaicans, we have Haitians that look like Black Americans, right? And some of these police officers, they can't tell the difference. You're just Black to them. So will it affect Black Americans? Absolutely. The only thing that may save Black Americans is the way that you speak, your ID. That will essentially save Black Americans. But I want you to look in this picture right here to the gentlemen that are sitting down in a group, and also the gentlemen who are in the group by the fence. Okay, can you guys see that? Let me put this up for you guys just a little bit. Right there. I see, let's see, 1, 2, 3, about 6 to 8 Black gentlemen here. So as I told you before, family, the illegal immigrants are they're not just Hispanic. Okay? They're from the country of Haiti. the Caribbean countries. There's dark melanated people as well. You may even have some people from the continent of Africa who can't get inside the country, legally, so they come illegally. Also, if you look at some of the people throughout a lot of these video clippings, you would see Indians, you would see Chinese folk. So it's not just Hispanics. This is not a war against Hispanics. This is a war against illegal immigration and some of the people who may be affected by it. And I know I stated that I support SB4 bill, but that does not mean that Black people, especially Black Americans, will not be targeted. Yes, we will, especially in Texas, especially if you live in those border towns. Now, people who live in Dallas and people who live in, Houston and Austin, you won't be affected. No one's going to stop you. Where are your papers, boy? But do I put it above? It could happen, okay? But I think it's less likely to happen in, major cities that are not near the border versus where these people are currently, okay? So that's kind of my 2 cents on the matter.
Federal help. Meanwhile, in Chicago, buses full of migrants continue to arrive, with more than 12,000 people already living in the city's 25 active shelters. The city saying nearly 500 buses have arrived since last August. Today, the migrant crisis was a major topic of discussion in a face-to-face meeting between President Biden and Mexico's president. Both men say they recognize the need to create more opportunities for legal immigration so people don't have to risk their lives crossing the southern border.
That's the most confusing thing that I'm
frustration.
That's one of the most confusing things that I'm running into. So Joe Biden is sitting down with the president of Mexico, and they're trying to come out ways to have people to come into America for legal immigration. Why aren't they talking about fixing and building and improving the infrastructure of Mexico so you have a trickle-down effect of all these Central and South America and Caribbean and Asian countries not to enter Mexico illegally? See, a lot of this, family, I want you guys to really think about it. Why is President Biden meeting President Obrador of Mexico, and they're talking about ways to have a better system of legal immigration? But they're not talking about the improvement of the infrastructure and the security of Mexico. See, we can send billions of dollars to Ukraine. We can send billions of dollars to Israel, but we cannot send billions of dollars to our neighboring country that thousands of people are utilizing this country as a pathway to the United States illegally. We can't do that. We can't give you money. We can't give you money to increase your police force numbers, to increase your national security force numbers, to increase your military numbers, to help build your infrastructure with clean water and electrical lights for everyone, so people want to stay in their own countries. See, Americans, Canadians, some European countries that have robbed the world of its resources, of its people. Some people believe this is, revenge for all the things that the system of white supremacy have done to other people. Yeah, it's a very twisted argument. It's a very contradicting argument. But at the end of the day, family, guess what most people are going to do? They're going to worry about their own families. And that trickles into their own people. So when I see organizations that are Hispanic-led, protesting and trying to shoot down this SB4 bill that, the Texas Governor Abbott has put into place to stop illegal immigration, I understand both sides. But here's my position. I understand what the system of white supremacy has done to people around the world, mostly Black people. But I understand that everyone is in this for their own best interests. And it's time that Black Americans look at their own best interests. And we have to start foreseeing the future. See, in the Black empowerment, in the Black media space, we have to predict what's possible. Because based upon the historical references that we've researched and read, we have to predict what's next. And people in the space have already predicted what's going to occur. See, a lot of these things inadvertently and indirectly affect Black America, but we don't really pay attention to it. We don't really think it will until it comes to a community near you. When it comes to Illinois, when it comes to Georgia, Florida, all of these Black communities, all these concentrated Black cities voted blue, no matter who. They voted blue no matter who, as long as it was Democrat. And then when you ask a lot of these Black folk, why did you vote Democrat? Majority, not all, majority of them say, well, anything was better than Donald Trump. And then you ask them, what has Donald Trump done to Black America? Well, he's racist. What has Donald Trump done to Black America? Did he write any legislation? Did he get the good old boys to round up all Black people? Did he put Black people in concentration camps? What has Donald Trump done prior to his presidency and during his presidency that majorly affected Black folk in a negative way? I'm waiting. I'm waiting for someone to send me an email, to make a comment, to pose those things to me. The one significant thing that I received, the one piece of anecdotal information I received was someone said it made racist people emboldened to commit criminal racial attacks against Black people. And I said, you're right. Those things didn't necessarily occur as blatantly under whether it be George Bush or President Clinton or even Barack Obama. But during that time, I want you to look at the hate crimes, the amount of hate crimes that was committed against Black folk. Well, was it up? Was it down? But the point I'm making here, family, is that we were still the number one people that had the highest number of hate crimes committed against us. So it really didn't matter. You get what I'm getting at? And when we talk about legislation, we know that Joe Biden created, passed into law with Bill Clinton, that massively incarcerated Black men that took them out of their homes. Okay? So a lot of this is a trickle-down effect. They understand how to essentially destroy your people. You take away the warrior class. You get rid of the men. And then while you get rid of the men, you make the state, you make the government the husbands and boyfriends of Black women. And then you prompt them up over their men. You tell them, we're going to put you in high places, high positions, make sure you're the most educated, put you in all these positions so you can shun your men. So now we have all these relationship videos of women saying, I don't want a man who makes less than me. I don't want a man unless he's this, and this. I don't want a man if he's not a provider and protector. I don't want a man this. So what if you make $60,000 and he makes $40,000 and you guys make $100,000 together? No. He has to make at least what I make. He also, has to do X, Y, and Z. These are the problems that we have because of the legislation that Joe Biden put into office. But when you bring that up, oh man, that was such a long time ago. Who do you think are the fathers of the generations today? My generation, the baby boomer generation, the millennials. It has affected Generation X, the millennials, Generation Y, and Generation Z. You know why? Even though that mass incarceration on paper still does not exist anymore, but the effects has transformed Generation X men to be what their fathers were in jail, incarcerated, and family, let alone this. The environment of jail changes people significantly. It changes people significantly. Some people go in there and they get their degrees. They become Christians or Muslim. They become very educated on law. All these great things occur in prison. But we know that the mass majority of those men that went into prison end up going back to prison for committing other crimes. Simply going to prison can make you a criminal. Think about that. Simply going to prison can make you a criminal. I don't understand. I don't know what prison does to the psyche of men. I have no idea. But I know one thing. I was in a prison cell for 4 hours, and I thought it was a freaking eternity. And people who've been to prison, people who've been in jail overnight, they laughed at me. They laughed. They said, man, your bitch ass was in there on 4 hours. I thought it was an eternity because I've never been too confined in a space that I could not leave, that, without my own free will, so to speak. I want you guys to think about that. Innocent people, innocent men and women, innocent Black men and women who have been incarcerated for years. How has that changed them? And we're not just talking about the life force that is taken away from them, but what has it done to their mental? What has it done to their psyche? Joe Biden was a part of that, not Donald Trump. And again, I'm not on the bandwagon. I'm not putting on the cape for Donald Trump. I'm not trying to make a defense for Donald Trump at all. I'm just stating the obvious and the truth. Some people are like, you want people to vote for Trump. I want people to vote for their own special interests. But when it comes to Black Americans, I would advise us, if there's nothing on the table for our people, as Donald Trump said, what do we have to lose? We've been voting Democrat. Donald Trump comes into office. Some of you guys voted for Donald Trump, but nothing has changed. And then you'll have your, Black political pundits like, well, it's not about the federal level, it's about the state level and local levels. Yeah, that's true. But we know that the federal government has the power and it has the money to give the reparations that they owe to Black Americans. That's all I'm stating. Immigrant rights group sues Texas to halt new law allowing arrest of migrants. Governor Abbott signs bill that lets police arrest migrants who enter the U.S. illegally. I want y'all to think about this dynamic. A state governor has to do what the president that you elected to do. You elected and selected Joe Biden to do his damn job. And he's not doing it. He's not increasing border security. He's not securing the border from illegal people entering the border. And matter of fact, not only he's doing this whole catch and release thing, the tax dollars, the tax dollars that you guys pay each and every year, inflation is through the roof, but he's sending all that money. Yeah. When you look at your W-2, your W-4, your pay stub, whatever, and you're looking at all the taxes you pay each and every month and how that accrues each and every year, he's sending that money to other countries. He's sending that money to other countries. He's not using that money to secure the border. He's not using that money to build up infrastructures in Black communities. Because don't forget, I played it many a times on this channel, how Joe Biden, after, he was selected for president, his acceptance speech, he stated that Black Americans had his back and that he's going to have our back. I've had people that have my back before. I just want to ask you guys, do you feel like the president has your back? Just a question. Just a question. Okay. So he signs this bill. It states that opponents have called Senate Bill 4 the most dramatic attempt by a state to police immigration since a 2010 Arizona law. Arizona law tried to do this. Arizona tried to do this over 10 years ago. The Arizona law states denounced by critics as a show me your papers bill. And that's how this kind of get blurred through lines, because Black Americans, especially before the 60s, even to this day, this occurs in some regards, depending on where you are, where police will stop and frisk, or police will randomly pull you over or randomly check you on the street. And that is, essentially the same as show me your papers. This was largely struck down by the U.S. Supreme Court. Texas law is also likely to face swift legal challenges. It states here that Governor Abbott has bused more than 65,000 migrants to cities across America and installed razor wire along the banks of the Rio Grande, which has snagged and injured some asylum seekers. Okay, I love the way how they use asylum seekers, family. I just love the way they use asylum seekers. I'm just going to say illegal immigrants, as it should be. Okay. It also goes on to say, separately, Monday, U.S. Customs and Border Protection temporarily shut down 2 railroad border crossings in Texas to shift officers to process migrants, not persecute, not in jail, not in prison, but process. Rail operators said the closure at Eagle Pass in El Paso would hamper trade ahead of Christmas. The new law signed by Abbott allows any Texas law enforcement officer to arrest people who are suspected of entering the country illegally. Once in custody, they could either agree to a Texas judge order to leave the U.S. or to be persecuted on misdemeanor charges of illegal entry. Migrants who do not comply could face arrest again under more serious felony charges. Okay. After the governor signed the bill, the Arlington Police Department issued a statement saying they believe federal agencies were better equipped to handle immigration than local police departments. I agree with that. Immigration remains a federal issue, and we believe our federal partners continue to be the best equipped and trained to handle it. The Arlington Police Department is focused on reducing crime, disrupting gun violence, and promoting traffic safety in our city while engaging with community members and forging lasting relationship with them, the department said. So I think that department is slightly coming out against Governor Abbott. That could be one of their city officials. And they should be very wary of that, because again, until things affect people, they don't understand the magnitude of the situation. Again, Abbott signs border bill that makes entering Texas illegally as a state crime. Okay. So there's a lot of going on in this particular space, family, that you guys should be aware of. There has been a lot of information, and I've told you before, the ACLU has threatened to sue Abbott over the measure that the organization has dubbed one of the most anti-immigrant bills passed by any state. My only question for that particular statement is how? How is it anti-immigrant? Simply stating that you're going to incarcerate, you're going to persecute anyone who's entering your state illegally, right? How is that anti-immigrant? He didn't state that if you enter the state of Texas legally, we're going to still persecute you, we're going to still jail you because you are not a citizen of this country. He didn't say that. He's basically stating that anyone who's entering Texas illegally, right? He's kind of putting, America's supposed to have this, indestructible wall up that no one can ever get through. But America hasn't done that. And so the state is now coming and say, well, they can't do what should be done, even though we have the laws on the book and they're not following the rule of law, they're not following the Constitution, then we have to do what's best for Texas. Now, a lot of people are familiar with Texas trying to break from the Union, and this is probably one of the reasons why. Okay, I know this is not the topic for discussion, but this is one of the reasons why that I think you guys should really pay attention to this. Because I do think that this will get struck down, just like any anti-immigrant or anti-labeling immigration laws that they put upon us. So, 3 top county executives in Texas penned a letter to President Joe Biden late last month urging him to stop SB4 from going into effect, citing concerns the measure is unconstitutional and could make communities less safe. The county executives led El Paso, Harris, home to Houston, and Travis, home to Austin counties, which represent nearly a quarter of the state population. So Joe Biden didn't even do nothing about this. Good. I hope the bill stands in place for the sake of Black Americans in the country. How about that? Now, Texas sued over law allowing state local police to make immigration arrests. And here's some of the signs that will go up. Warning, it's illegal to cross here, punishable by removal or imprisonment. So you come into America to live your lifelong dream of opportunity illegally, and you're going to be in prison or you're going to be removed and sent back to the country in which you crossed over from. Now, again, Venezuelans, Haitians, you name it, they're all coming through Mexico. We're sending them back to Mexico. Because as we showed before, family, President Biden and the president of Mexico, they're sitting up there having a meeting, and they say, how can we do better with immigration? I want you guys to, man, you know, when I think about this, family, I really want you guys to look at it in a biased sort of manner. I know that's not right, but I want you guys to be biased. You may not like Republicans. You may not like some of their legislation. I really like none of these political parties, but I'm just taking it in kind. And of course, they have it in Spanish, okay? But is Governor Abbott doing what he thinks is in the best interest of the state of Texas? That is the question I have for you guys. Is he simply doing this to be racist? Is he simply doing this to be biased? Is he simply doing this to be anti-immigrant? Or is he doing this in the best interest for the state of Texas? I will have to side with the latter. He is doing this for the best interest for the state of Texas. Because it took him this long to come this far. I want you guys to think about that. It's taking him this long to come this far because this onslaught of illegal immigrants coming into the country started early last year and it has not stopped. He has bused over 65,000 illegal immigrants to all of these sanctuary cities. But we're not talking about Arizona. We're not talking about New Mexico. We're not talking about Florida. All of these states have had the same issue, but of course, Texas has had the largest. Because in order for the illegal immigrants to get to Florida, they got to take a boat. And you've seen that, I think one boat, unfortunately, had too many people on it, and a lot of people fell to their death. Now, people are risking life and limb to come to America. That is because America believes, and I'm going to say the Democrats on this one, they have a dying population. They're trying to replace this dying population with immigrants. The Democrats have a voter base that's no longer believing in their lies. There's no longer believing in the false promises that they're making to Black Americans. So they're losing the Black American vote and decreasing the amount of people who are going to vote in this new election. So they need to replace those people, Black Americans, with people who they know will vote for them for all the benefits and opportunities they're going to provide for them. And if you think I'm just, shooting out biases and conjecture, then check me on it. I want you to. I want you to check me on the words that I'm speaking, because I can back everything up with facts of what this government has allowed and what this government has done for illegal immigrants and not Black Americans. That's where we are, family. So when I see this sign, I have one word for it. Good. I'm glad someone's doing something. I'm glad someone's doing something because I'm worried about the Black American family. I'm worried about the resources that we don't have, the resources that we never had, and then the meager resources that we do have that's now being taken away with the illegal immigration. Have nothing against the people who are coming over here for a better way of life. Nothing against the people. Nothing against the country of Mexico, nothing against the country of Venezuela, nothing against the country of Haiti, the Caribbean, Africans, China, India, whoever's coming over here illegally through the means and by the way of Mexico. Nothing against the people or the country. Have everything against the way this is being done and what's being allowed. That is what I'm against. I'm simply against illegal immigration. And as the sign says here, this is what the sign says. The sign says, warning, it's illegal to cross here. Because where they are crossing, there's no immigration officers. It is not a legal or sanctioned border crossing. There's no offices to do background checks. There's no computers to record people's name and blood type and status or whatever it may be that they do at immigration offices at the border. Because, you drive back and forth through the Mexican border, you show your passport. A lot of these people are coming over here with no ID at all, so we don't know who they are. Do not forget September 11th. And if you took a group of Middle Eastern people and you put them against Venezuelans and Mexicans and Haitians, and you put them in all these groups, they will blend right in. And I'm not stating that Middle Eastern folks are terrorists. I'm not stating that. But I am making a point to September 11th so you understand that a lot of these sleeper cells, it was possible that they got in America by the way of the Mexican border. Okay, I know I'm stretching. And that's okay. But that is the way that we have to look at this, because a lot of these areas where the illegal immigrants are, okay, crime has increased by 5%, most likely. A lot of the numbers that I looked at, a lot of the projections, crime has increased by 5%. That doesn't state that illegal immigrants are criminals. Just like in regular population of America, no matter what color, race, creed you are, there's a population of Americans that are criminals. But when you have people in our country illegally, you're having the good and the bad, and you have no record of them at all. We have no record of tracking them. We have no record of, their profiles and personas. So how do you think this is going to turn out? That is what I really want you guys to really think about here. Again, I'm not against any of the people or the countries and where they're derived from. I'm simply against illegal immigration because that has a direct toll and effect on Black communities here in the United States of America.